It's time to step into the Coming Out Lounge, a cool, safe space to be true to your sexual self. With your host, Rick Clemens. Rick has helped hundreds of people come out of the closet, and now each week he's bringing you cool insights for loving and accepting yourself, boosting your self-confidence, and living a guilt-free, purpose-filled life on the other side of the closet doors. Cuddle up with yourself and get ready for heartwarming coming out stories, ideas for living authentically, and tips for being fully self-expressed. Now here's your host, Coming Out Coach Rick.
Hello, Closet Busters. It's that time once again to stop the closet dwelling and to step out, step up, and step into living your truth. And today we're going to give some high fives today to being yourself as a lesbian. In fact, the closet door opened and you walk through it, you face down some of your demons as well as probably a few of the naysayers, and you're probably out there now living your life. You're living your proud lesbian life. And that doesn't mean we're only going to talk to lesbians, but I want to focus on my girls today because we haven't ever done that. And once you've got out there and you've started living your life, for some reason things just aren't maybe working out the way you thought they might. You've got a career going on, you maybe got a gal by your side, and for all intents and purposes, you've got it going on pretty good, girlfriend. But wait. There's some little quiet voice inside you that's saying something. You're feeling confused. Maybe you're feeling frustrated or unfulfilled. That's it, isn't it? And it's hard for us to be human, let alone be a woman in today's world. And then, on top of it, be a lesbian and try to make it all work. But that's up until now. In fact, today my friend and my guest is Coach Kerri Smith-Osei, and she's going to grab a seat with us here today in the Coming Out Lounge, and she's going to dole out some awesome advice on how to find that balance in this world of ours as a lesbian and as a woman. We're going to maybe go to some places where we talk a little taboo, talk about, the things women do, the things women are afraid to talk about, just so that you can start to feel more aligned and intentional with who you are in your authentic lesbian self. And we're going to give you a few helpful tips for asking what you need to let go of any shame or guilt you have about being a woman and especially about being a lesbian. So we're going for the love, the careers, the relationships, and the personal self-care with my friend Kerri. Welcome, Kerri, to the show.
Thank you so much, Rick. What an awesome introduction. I agree with everything that you said.
Well, of course you do, because you wrote it all and gave it to me, so duh!
That part.
Yeah. Oh, we're not supposed to tell those magical things we do behind the production scenes, right? Yeah, we don't tell how many times Rick has rehearsed that intro and all that sort of stuff. So, but I am really excited to have you here, and I think we actually hooked up through an online tele thing you were doing with another friend of ours.
The Global Summit. Happened back in the summer with a bunch of really cool and great people who are down for the LGBT community, even if they don't identify as such.
Absolutely.
Reverend Michael Beckwith, he's awesome. So you reached out to me because I think you saw my particular interview, and I was like, cool, I want to be on your show. We're here. We are.
We're finally here, and yes, we're both still queer, so we might as well dive in here. And I literally meant when I said in the midst of the intro that, I don't think I've ever really spent a whole episode just focused on my beautiful lesbian sisters and really helping them to stand in their own beautiful power. We do a lot of talking about, generalized, coming out and gay stuff, but I've never devoted a show to the girls, and I want to do that today.
Thank you.
I felt like you would be a really great person to have on that show and to do it. So I'm basically going to shut up, and now the microphone is yours. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I'll take it.
Yeah, no, I know you could. I know you're good, girlfriend, because I saw what you did with the summit, and I'm like, okay, she could rock this thing all on her own. But so you and I have something in common. We were just talking about it before we went on the air. We both got married on New Year's Eve, different years, but New Year's Eve. So we're gonna always be able to never have our spouse say, "What do you mean you forgot our anniversary?"
Exactly.
Ain't gonna happen. So, but you've also been together with your girl for quite a while, and I guess maybe that's a good place to kind of dive in. A lot of people are like, "What's the secrets?" All this sort of stuff. I don't really want to know the secrets to a relationship, but I'm curious about what are some of the really big hurdles as a woman, and then on top of it as a lesbian woman, to be in a really good relationship.
Well, the thing is, I mean, relationships in general, we all kind of have common themes. You know, when we start to break down heterosexual versus homosexual, you start to find that there are some common themes. But once you get in it, it's a completely different scenario. One of the things that I know to be a huge hurdle being with another woman is the emotional component. Why? Because you're two women and you are both very emotional. So try having a disagreement with someone who is just as passionate as you are about the subject matter. You're never going to win. You might as well stop right now. Yeah. You know, so you find yourself in a lot of situations where often, you know, I'm not going to lie, you agree to disagree, or you sort of back away from it because you get the point that's being made, you know, and you figure, you start to make your point. Wait a minute, we're both saying the same things, just in different words. What the hell? So the emotional component of it is a huge hurdle. It can also be a plus, but I find that it's more so a hurdle than anything else. The love language that you speak, which I guess also sort of taps into emotions, but when you speak a completely different love language than your wife, your partner, your girlfriend, it can make the relationship so freaking tough because you figure, because you're two women, that you're always on the same page, right? For the most part. And then you realize your love languages are completely different. Like mine is physical touch. My wife's is words of affirmation. So when she does something for me or does something in general in the house or whatever, she'll sort of look to me to be like, did I do a good job? And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I just hugged you, right? I just gave you a kiss. So you should know you did a good job. But then she's still like waiting for me to say it. So love language, super important. One, that you find out which language you speak. And second, that you communicate that to your partner. So that third, you can come together and compromise on how you're going to communicate. Biggest hurdle is miscommunication, right along the emotions, right along with the love language. Miscommunication and assumptions, because we're women. We talk a lot. We express a lot. We want you to know everything that we're thinking. But sometimes we don't have the right tools to use the right words, right? Like sometimes my partner, she, the big joke around here is, I mean, she's like super OCD, not really, but sort of. And she'll be telling me one thing about the OCD, like, babe, the reason why I cleaned up the whole house when I know that I was tired is because blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, but why did you do that? I would have helped you. You know, when in her mind, she's communicating to me, but I didn't want you to have to do that. I wanted you to rest. And in my mind, I'm like, you're doing too much, right? Yeah. So the miscommunication comes right out of the gate. And if you don't nip it in the bud and really listen to what your partner's saying and pretty much say to her, listen, this is what I heard. Is this what you meant?
Yep.
You're gonna have a problem. So those three big things.
Those are three biggies. So love language they speak, communicate it with your partner, and what's number 3 again?
The emotional component.
Got it. The biggie. So it's actually the biggie. The emotional component is huge. But I love that you brought this up because some people may not be familiar with love language, and I think it's very powerful. In fact, I'm trying to think of the name of the book, but there's a book.
The 5 Love Languages.
The 5 Love Languages. Thank you. I haven't had my coffee, and it's almost midday. Maybe I better have some coffee soon. But the 5 Love Languages is such a beautiful, powerful book, and the thing that I like about it is it works with any relationship.
Exactly.
Gay or straight, boss, employee, mother-in-law, well, maybe not with mother-in-laws. That may not work at all, but, it does. No, it does. It'll work with mom, too. But I think it's very powerful, and I love that you brought up this know the language, communicate, which really, communication is the key in every relationship. I don't even think we need to say that because I think everybody's heard that over and over again. But like they say, until you learn the lesson, we're going to keep teaching it to you. So Absolutely. People, that's why we all talk about communicating and listening. As I sit here going, now Rick, you need to remember that yourself. But, well, cool. So we've talked a little bit about the relationship stuff. Not a little bit. You gave some really powerful stuff. But I want to kind of go to the heart of this because this is the Coming Out Lounge. And I can understand to a point, but I can't understand the difference for a lesbian woman versus a gay man. Right. How different that is for you coming out of the closet. And I know there's a difference. It's a completely different thing because there's already a built-in, what I call a built-in accepted stigma in society that, oh, two women getting it on, okay, that's kind of cool, but then that's where the stigma actually starts to happen and women become these sexualized beings. So
exactly. Yes.
I think I'm kind of right on top of probably one of the biggest things that's difficult for lesbians.
Yeah, you are. You said it. I mean, if you think about it, going back to, I don't know, way back, decades and decades, we as women, we've been conditioned to believe that there's a role that we play. One of the things is we're super sexualized by men. Sorry, Rick.
No,
it's true. And so when we start to have feelings for the same sex, and we think about all of the internalized homophobia and just how men view us, it becomes really difficult to step into that space and feel good about it, to feel empowered about it. Because one, we're told you're not supposed to feel that. What are you doing? You're not supposed to feel that. Your family's going to hate you for that. You have a role. You're supposed to be a wife. You're supposed to get married to a man. You're supposed to have these kids. You're supposed to, do what women are supposed to do. And a lot of us, more than likely, and this is where we do share in the general, coming out, no matter if you identify as LGBT or Q, that it happens really young. For a lot of us, right? We start to feel this, something is going on, something is different. And for women, once that feeling starts to make its way to the surface, we have not a clue what to do with it. For me, I'll give you a personal example. A lot of things that sort of stood in my way and was an obstacle when I started feeling those things was there was no one for me to talk to. Not in my family, not in the church, not with friends, because you just didn't talk about this. You know what your role is. You know what you're supposed to do. You've been told if you did share it with someone, it's just a phase. You're going to grow out of that. Don't worry about it. Not that men don't feel that as well, but I think for women, there's this added pressure of that's not what's supposed to happen. Yeah. And for parents, my mom in particular, and I know lots of women can share in this, it was like I killed her dream that I was going to have kids and that I would be in a marriage and those sort of things. Like she immediately heard that when I came out versus the struggle that I went through versus the, mom, I just didn't know if I was quote unquote normal. Like in her mind, she was just like, that's it. The dream is out the window. I thought you knew that this is the route you were supposed to go. And then you look at the media and things that you said, about how sexualized we are and how you think of two women together and, oh, that's sexy. But you're not thinking about the depth of it for women who are struggling with those feelings that they're having. A lot of women, what we end up doing?
I bet you just don't do anything.
Getting married anyway to a man.
Exactly.
Well, we either one, do nothing, or two, go this other route of a complete double life. Where we get married and we have these kids and we stay in these heterosexual relationships way past the expiration date. Yep. And we are dying inside. And that's a big deal for us because as women, again, we're strong. We're supposed to be strong.
Right.
Go ahead.
Sorry. But no. I love where you're going. Because, I can tell you're passionate about it. And it's because of that I wanted to have you on here because I think for many people, when they hear the gay lesbian story, the first thing we all know they go to is, oh, okay, let's go right to the sexual piece. Okay, well, if you take the sexual piece away, there is this other layer of who I'm attracted to, who I feel most comfortable in relationship with. And for women, especially, this role that you're meant to play, and I have 2 daughters, so even as a gay dad, I carry some of the here's how women are supposed to be. But it's coming from not something that I created. It's coming from what society created in me. So I have to constantly be juggling, okay, be the dad, but don't be the dad that says, but this is what women are supposed to do, And it's a struggle because I went through it with myself, but it comes from a different space. It was while you were talking that I had a thought I'd never had before. It's like, okay, so when a guy's coming out, it's either you're really like effeminate or you're like Mr. Bruiser, like, okay, I'm going to kick your ass if you say anything about me being gay. It's kind of just kind of how you can go about this, right? But then for women, you're the nurturer, you're the, the caretaker at the home. You're all these things you've been told you're supposed to be. Which is innate in many women's DNA. It's how they're wired to be to begin with. But, you can't do all of that stuff and be in love with a woman. It's not possible, because that's not part of the playbook that women get handed in the, in the conception piece. The blue book didn't say this is what's supposed to happen. Now, granted, I know some people listening to this are going to say, yeah, but the same thing happens for guys. Yes and no. I think for men, I know my struggle was I wasn't manly enough. But that only was because I thought that all gay men were effeminate. Until I started realizing, wait. I can be Mr. Bruiser, big 6'4" Rick, and still love a guy, dig a guy, enjoy the sex with a guy, but I don't have to be that completely effeminate. Yes, I can go there, and sometimes when I get really passionate, I go there very quickly. The difference is, women really get boxed in this societal view of how a woman is supposed to be. And part of that does come to the sexualized piece of it too, of you can be the mother, the caretaker, all these sort of things, all the, that nurturing thing. Oh, and yeah, you can go and play with a woman, and that's, that's okay because women are weaker, so they're supposed to do these sort of things. And I remember the first time I ever heard that, it infuriated me. It made me so mad when somebody said, yeah, but women are weak. They can go do that little lovey kissy play with each other thing, because that's just the way women are. They're just weak that way. And I wanted to strangle the person who said it. Luckily, it was just some idiot on TV that I couldn't strangle, but So I think part of this gets carried forward though too into lesbian life. I think I see a lot of my lesbian girlfriends really struggle with trying to find their identity once they're in their own world as lesbian. Is that pretty true?
It's exactly true. And here's something I want to touch on, because you said it without saying it as it applied to men. The roles that we are boxed into, right?
Yep.
That's if you're feminine. What about my lesbian sisters who identify as masculine within themselves, right? The tomboys, if you will. They're still women. They still know they got the women parts, if you will, but they feel inside of them that they want to play out this role of a tomboy, or, unfortunately, when people listen, I've heard this so many times when they ask about my relationship. So who's the man in the relationship? And I'm like, what? Who's the man? Neither one of us is the man.
But that happens with us guys. But here's
it does.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. But here's where I think we can make a really great point. This is because we as humans, we have to have a label to process.
Exactly.
So this is why it's so powerful right now that there are some gender rules being bent in a big way. That's why the queer revolution is starting to show up. That's why the gender nonconforming is starting to show up. It's people saying, if we didn't have these labels, what would life be like?
What would it be like? Exactly.
If we loved for love's sake, if we just were attracted for attraction's sake, it would be such a different world.
It would. And it's so hard to wrap your head around that though, right? Because society, like you said, we've been ingrained with all of this stuff. And the coming out process for women, I think is so different, because the piece that no one talks about is that internalized homophobia that's been there all along because of what we've been told. So when we start our process as women of coming out, the first thing we have to deal with is ourselves.
Yeah.
No one is really, we talk about coming out and, oh my God, how's my parent going to respond? How are my friends? How are my kids going to respond? Well, before you can even go there, how are you responding to it? That internalized homophobia will hold you hostage. A lot of the women that I coach that are in that process of coming out, whether it's later in life or, they're pretty young, that's one of the things that I hit home with. I'm like, well, tell me first how you're truly feeling about it, because most women, they don't not usually come out immediately as lesbian. They first will be bisexual, right? Because that label feels more comfortable. It feels like, okay, society won't judge me as much because, we've heard that term and it's okay. And it sort of means I haven't made a decision yet. But a lot of times the decision has been made. You just don't know how to say that word, lesbian. You don't know how to say that and feel good about that because you've been told that that is not all right. if you dibble and you dabble here and there, that's okay, right? Because at some point we figure you're going to come back full circle. Yep. And you will be heterosexual all over again. I know, because that was my story. Yep. I was bisexual for the longest when I knew damn well I wasn't bisexual, right? But it just felt more comfortable to say that. And then tables turned and I was like, okay, I have to deal with these feelings that I'm going through, the conflict. The understanding that I'm going to have to let go of this identity, the person that I was told I was supposed to be, and who I genuinely was trying to be to please other people. And then I had to say, no, this is who I am. And that it's like, you feel like a failure almost, as a woman, you almost feel like, man, I'm letting down so many people. And in that process, you sort of forget about yourself at first until you realize, wait, I can't even fully come out and be true to me if I am not being true to me, if that makes sense, right? Because it all starts with us.
Yeah, it makes total sense. It does start with us. And I think one of the things you're bringing up, that there's a layer of this for women that makes it even harder, I believe, based on what I'm hearing. And I've heard this before, but today you're really bringing it home, is there's these pieces of shame that women carry simply because they're women. Mm-hmm. So now you add this other piece onto it. It's just one more Samsonite packed full of shame to carry as a lesbian. Mm-hmm. Guys, I don't believe most men, and again, I'm generalizing here, so I can't be completely inclusive, guys, if you're listening to this, but guys, for the most part, it's either you're gay or you're not. Yes, there's bisexuals, I get that, and there's the transgenders, but I just want to put it in the frame of, okay, if your sexual orientation is gay or heterosexual, you're either there or there. There isn't much more that guys have to fight with other than, okay, if you're gay, then you got to fight. Well, then you're not as masculine. Okay, I get that. But you're not dealing with all the stuff of, oh, you never were told you couldn't vote. You were never told you couldn't drive. You were never told that your place is in the house and only in the house. There's all these other things that society has layered and layered and layered upon who women are that come into play, and now this lesbian thing is just one more piece of that frosting, so to speak, on the cake that just adds to it. And no wonder they hang their head in shame and say, okay, forget it, I just can't do this.
Right, exactly. That's one of the toughest things when women come to me, especially in their older years, let's say, and they are really feeling like, I can't not do this anymore. The shame that they feel just around feeling like they can't do this anymore. And the can't do this anymore part is living the double life. Mm-hmm. Living for others, being in marriages that they had no business being in to begin with and all that. Like that shame that they've been carrying all along, we often look at it as, okay, when you come out later in life, you missed out on a big part of what younger folks now, because I'm telling you, I'm looking at kids now, they're coming out, little girls are coming out 12, 13 years old, they're in school, they have girlfriends. I'm like, what the hell? Like, I couldn't have fathomed coming out back then when I was 12 or 13, right? But they get that opportunity to sort of be in that space, go through their adolescence and figure out what's going on. Now, fast forward to women who are a little bit older that are coming out. It's like you've got to go through your adolescence all over again. Mm-hmm. It's the toughest thing because you just know that people are judging you, right? Absolutely. So on top of you having your own feelings around what you've had to deal with and suppressing your true sexual orientation all this time, now you've got to deal with the newness of it all. The shame that comes with the newness, the pain that comes with the newness, the explaining, to your family, to your children, which I think is so tough. And that's a big piece. I don't know if we're going to touch on that, but the whole reaction of your kids and you being okay with that, because you are the cornerstone in your family, in your marriage, right? Your kids come to mom to get this advice, to figure out how to be strong. Not that dad isn't involved, but how do you then say to them, I've been lying about who I am for the last 30 years and feel good about that as you're coming out? How do you reconcile all of that? It's tough. It's really tough.
Well, in my book that's coming out in February, there's the Shameless Book Club right there.
I love it.
Plug. But I talk about that this later in life thing, and I think, God bless that so many young people in so many places, not everywhere yet, are feeling like they can come out and be who they are. I, for one, feel blessed that I didn't come out earlier because I knew I had to grow into the mature gay man. Not that I'm 100% mature even now, but much more mature gay man that I needed to be in order to do the journey.
Right.
But man, it's so much to do later in life. And some people say, well, why is it so much harder? Well, because you've got potentially kids. You've got family that has really become accustomed to this. You have in-laws now. Your whole life has been predicated on you as a couple a lot of times. They see you as a conjoined unit. And so suddenly, and this isn't any different, I'm not making any excuses, this isn't any different for anyone who has just gone through a divorce because it's not working, but it's the same sort of stuff. But what you're throwing into the mix here is now there's this twist of you never were really who you were. Never were. Right. Because that sexual orientation says, oh, wow, that's different. It's a little bit different than somebody saying, yeah, I had an affair and this isn't going to work. Okay, you kind of weren't who you were because you may have played the role of, oh, I'm really honest and integrity, and then suddenly you have an affair and then, boom, the marriage is over. Okay, you get a little bit of, but you don't have a whole lifetime of, quote, hiding this thing. This white elephant has been in the room from day one of whatever you went, and it's really tough. There's no easy way through it, around it, in it. It's just tough. Tough is tough. It's
a lot of work emotionally, you know, and pinpointing it back to women in particular because of the emotions, like I mentioned that in the beginning about us being such emotional beings. Not that men aren't, but we tend to be a little bit more. It's a lot of work emotionally for us to get to that point where we can say out loud, this is who I am, because there's fear. There's fear about all the things you're going to lose when you come out, right? And that emotional component is so hard for women because we don't want to mess it up for any. We don't want it to affect, so many people in our life the way that we know that it will, especially children if they're involved, and our moms in particular. Again, go ahead. What were you going to say? Well,
but there's something that you're standing on it. Women, and I talk to this all the time. In fact, I talk to my girlfriends about this all the time because I'm trying to build community and stuff in different ways. Mm-hmm. Women know how to build community. So when you know how to build community and you have built a community, which is what women do, they build community as family, they build community as extended family, they build community as friends and in schools and, being the moms that, take care of the kids and get them to school. Not that I'm saying all moms do that, but even women who are working mothers, they have this innate way of building community around them. And suddenly you're not just coming out to the husband, the kids, the extended family, the close nuclear family. You're coming out to an entire community that you probably have been a very active part of creating. And it's a lot different. Yes, guys, we have community. But our community, and I'll probably get my ass kicked by somebody by saying this, but I really don't care. Our communities are a little more superficial, a little more surface. Our community may be, let's go to the ball game together. Okay, right, kick back, drink some beers. Hey, pat them on the back. That was a great night out, blah, blah, blah. Done. Yes, it's going to be different when I'm having that beer with that guy and say, by the way, what I'd really like to be doing to that guy that's been over about to hike that football back. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit different. But there's something about this thing that women are innately capable of building community that really impacts the entire coming out process for them.
Absolutely. Because once you come out, that community that you built, it sort of disintegrates, and now you have to build a new community, like you said, we're that's sort of part of our nature, so we can. Doesn't mean that it's not hard to do that. Because now you're building a new community within a new lifestyle, and you're already dealing with who you are and figuring things out. But now you've got to build this new community or become a part of this new community. Yeah. And that can be tough too. And you know what? Where you just said that you might get your ass kicked, I might get my ass kicked for saying this, but women can be really difficult in the acceptance process too. Even when you're coming into the new, quote unquote, lesbian community, because you get asked all these questions. And it's funny because you think, well, wouldn't you be more supportive of my process? Like, wouldn't you understand a little bit more? But interestingly enough, because there is a lot of self-hate, right? We don't talk about that. But absolutely, women and self-hate often go hand in hand when you're coming out, because that's part of why it takes so long. That's part of what you're dealing with. And so you go into this new community that you're either building or becoming a part of, and you do get questioned at that point too. Well, what happened? Well, how did you do this? Well, how come you didn't think of doing this? And women can get on a high horse. Yeah. Well, I was able to come out and say X, Y, or Z. Like, interestingly, talking to my wife, because her struggle with coming out wasn't as, let's use the word crazy, as mine. Her family sort of knew and pretty accepting very early on, whereas my family is a very religious based, and it took me forever to say the words. When I actually came out, my biggest fear was I'm going to lose all these people. And it was a real fear. It wasn't one of those, well, this might happen. Yeah. No, it was a very real fear that this is potentially going to happen, and it may very well happen when I do this. And so you have that. So women, when we come out, we have different stories. Yep. And sometimes we compare our stories, and we can't always relate to another woman's story of coming out, because maybe your family and friends were great with it. Whereas my family and friends looked at me like I had 10 heads, like, but you've been bringing a man home, you've had boyfriends all this time, like, so you're a liar, right? They go right to that. So what you're really saying is you're a liar and you can't be trusted. No, that's not what I'm saying, but that's what you're thinking. So the pain and shame is so real, not just from community, but even from other women. And I know we don't want to talk about that part, but that's a very real part of it that I think needs to be addressed. I
think it does need to be addressed. And, you're right. I can't believe we're already to the end of the segment, but I would love to have you come back, because you're bringing up some really beautiful stuff about what's not being said. I mean, we haven't touched on that. We haven't touched on, the unique struggles that women of color go through. We haven't touched on, how this affects women in the work environment.
The workplace, yeah.
There's many struggles. So I know you did this on purpose. You just got us right to the brink, so you go, okay, Rick, well, I guess I got to come back so we can have another conversation.
Right. Make me a regular.
I know, I'm sitting here going, man, her and I do pretty good at this. We kind of got our jive going on here. We might want to do this on a more regular basis. So, but definitely. So, you've given so many beautiful things already, but, as the Coming Out Lounge, one of the questions I always ask each guest is, if you could give somebody a piece of advice on their journey as they're coming out of this struggle, what would be the one piece of advice you would give someone?
My biggest piece of advice is, please take the time to love you first in the process. How you show up to tell anyone about your sexual orientation is a giant reflection of how you feel about your sexual orientation. If you're not okay, if you're still in that space of, oh my God, I'm still wondering, or I don't know how to deal with this, and you try to come out and tell someone, that energy is going to be transferred to the person that you're telling. And they're going to look at you with that same sort of, are you sure? If you're not sure. So love on you. Get clear with you. Eliminate, as much as possible, any of the shame that you feel, and know that you are perfectly fine. That a lot of other people struggle like this, but you need to love on you. Go internal on yourself, and really love on you first, and then take that next step, whatever that next step looks like for you as far as coming out. But self-love is key. Yeah. And I would say really work on that, in your process. Absolutely.
As you were talking, one of the things that I always bring up in my coaching sessions with someone that's coming out, or in anything, because I do a lot of work with lots of different people from all walks of life. One of my favorite phrases is to just say, how you show up is how you show up. There's no getting around it. If you're in a crappy mood, then you're showing up in a crappy mood. If you're showing up loving yourself, then people are going to see you love yourself. If you're showing up shy and bashful, then that's what you're doing. You're showing up shy and bashful. Some of that, there's no wrong or right to it. It's okay. But I think we forget that oftentimes it doesn't have to be something we've said. It's just literally how we show up. I mean, I could have hopped on this, podcast with you and been, okay, so we're going to talk lesbian. You're going to take the lead. I'm going to ask questions. You do it. And we got 30 minutes and we'll be done. Well, if I'd showed up that way, that would have been exactly how the interview would have gone. And it would have been like something that nobody wanted to listen to.
Right.
But because we're fabulous and we know how to do this, we want to make sure we gave everybody a really good listen to today. So, so I'd love if you could just really quickly share with people how they can get in touch with you if they want to do some work with you. What's your website?
Absolutely. Yeah, the fastest way to get in contact with me is via my website, which is www.iamcoachkerri.com.
And Kerri is with 2 R's and an I, correct?
Yes, correct.
Got to make sure we do this correct. And I have to say, I'm not joking. I do want to have you back. I think you and I could go
I'm absolutely down.
A whole nother segment on the other stuff we haven't touched on, the race and how you show up in work and some of this other stuff. But you have been an absolute delight and wonderful person to have on the episode today. And if you've enjoyed what you've heard today with Kerri and I invite you to, if it feels right, only if it feels right, to hop onto iTunes or wherever you listen to us. Maybe you're an an iTunes person, a Stitcher, a SoundCloud, whoever it is, whatever your means to listen to us. If you really feel compelled to do a rating and a review, we would love it. It's how we get the word out. It's how people see, hey, in all this world of things we could be doing, this one kind of stands out to me because, look, they've got some really good ratings and reviews. You can also hop onto Facebook and catch me at the Coming Out Coach page. That's another place where you can connect with me. And you can also connect with me at Rick Clemens on my Twitter account. What's your Twitter account, Kerri? Throw that out there.
At Coach Kerri.
At Coach Kerri. Again, Kerri.
Correct.
And if you want to, comment on what you hear, we would love to hear it. We'd be glad to get back in touch with you. And with that, it's time to wrap it up once again. And with that, I'm going to say we want you to go out there and step out, step up, and step into always living your most powerful truth. I'm Rick Clemens, the Coming Out Coach, and you've been listening to the Coming Out Lounge. We will catch you in just another week. Take care and have a good week, everyone.
You've just experienced the Coming Out Lounge. Go online to www.comingoutlounge.com to learn more, and tune in again next week for more stories and tips for being true to yourself.